Okay, so this is how you can replace a inline switch on a lamp. So, first things first, that is obviously the cable that goes to the light, and here is the plug with that there, because I've already cut off the old one that had failed, and this is what I will be installing. So yeah, now already taken one apart, so we have all the pieces there. Now as far as orientation goes, it doesn't technically matter too much whether you put it like that or like that, but my preference and how I always do them is like that. So the red dot, when it's sitting in place and you go to switch it, is in the right spot. So now in the case of this one having two wires, the two wires go to the two screw terminals accordingly. Now if you happen to have a third one, which would be a green wire or a green and yellow wire, that would go to this, which normally sits inside there. But today we're not going to be needing that. So first things first, that is, I'll double check that that is the top. Ooh. And of course that happens. Anyway, so that there. Now, yep, that is the top. So you slacken the screw. Unfortunately with these ones, the screw will undo and it will stop before it actually comes out completely. So do not undo them completely, and do not force the screw undone. It will just simply stop on its own. So double check the red. So first things first, we need to measure how much we are going to need. So we are going to need, say, the end of that to the end of that, which is approximately 1 centimetre. And then probably a little bit more by the time we do the actual connection. So in this particular switch, I would say we measure off about that much. Now, very carefully get a knife with a nice sharp blade, and very carefully and very softly put a line in that. And line that. Now, if you've done it enough, you should see the insulation just starting to come through, but it is not cut the whole way through. Now, sometimes like this, just need to just very carefully make it a little bit bigger. And then you can normally just pluck it off with your fingers like that. There we go. And as you see, that is the only part that is cut. The actual coloured wire is not cut at all. So now you can again use a knife if you want, but I find actual proper pliers is easier because that's what I'm used to. And I strip off approximately that much of wire, so about a centimetre or less, and like that. Now again, you can use a knife, in which case you very carefully cut and cut. Ooh, and may take an attempt or two. Or sometimes you can actually get the knife and slice off that way. But again, careful that you don't cut the copper wire inside. And there we go. So now you get the wire and you twist in a clockwise direction. And bend them in half. So now we just double check that the switch is at the top, or dropped at the top. Now it doesn't matter whether you do red there and blue there, or that there, or red or brown or blue or black, and there or there, either one, but as long as you do the same to each side. So in this case, for today, we'll do it like this. So now you poke it in until the exposed copper is underneath the screw and the cut piece of the insulation finishes just there. And do it up. And there we go. Now it's not perfect, but that'll do. Now, one thing I always do is I put it on the left side of the screw, so that when you do it up, it pulls the wire in to this terminal. So I will show you what happens with this one, because if you put it on that right hand side, often what happens when you do it up, it will try to pop itself out like that. So you instead put it on the left side, and it holds itself in. There we go. Yeah, it's a little bit poking out, but good enough for today. So ideally all of those wires are underneath the screw terminal, but that'll be good enough. Now we'll just double check that we have got the right amount. So when we put the lid on, the cover will grab on this little plastic piece in here and grab on the black insulation. And so when we screw it all together, it will sit like that approximately. Yes, and that will be fine. So now, just for speed, we will just do it. Oh, that's not that slippery today. Okay, my hands are not quite as dry as I was expecting, so there we go. Same again. The insulation is cut off with no damage to any of the colours. Strip off approximately that much. Twist clockwise. Bend in half. And finally, we screw it into here. Now again, same thing, make sure that you don't cross them over like that, because what can happen is, in the case of screw in lamps and fittings, by reversing the wires like that, you can end up with the live part of the bulb in being the outer part of the bulb, the outer metal base, and that is not good. So you always make sure you do brown, brown, blue to blue, and yeah. So same again, on the left hand side of that. So when you do it up, it pulls it in. Same again, do it up, and it pulls itself in. And you only ever need 2 fingers to do it up. I'll just double check the other ones while I'm here. And yeah, and there we go. So now, red switch at the top, which will be that. And it doesn't technically matter whether this goes that way or whether it goes that way, because fortunately with this one it is designed to go in either direction. Now if the cord that you're fitting off, when it comes to screwing it all together, is quite thick, you do actually have an adjustment with these ones with a clamp. So if you have quite a thick cord, you can flip this around so that it clamps down like that, so it has lots of space spare. And by default that has not much space spare. So that is what we want for this particular cord because of how small it is. But if your cord is quite bigger, then swap it around and do it that way. But I will just change this back to how it was. And there we go, ready. So now we will fit that to there, and again make sure that that sits inside like that, sits all very nice and tidily. And this, see how it's trying to sit outside? We make sure that we bend it in and set it so that it sits inside like that. Now, it may take a few attempts to get in the right spot, and then the cover goes on. Ooh. And sometimes that happens. So. There we go. Now, before we screw it up, we just double check the alignment of everything. Make sure that's all nice and tight. And now, screw it up. Now, I don't know how other people tend to do these, but I always like to do it that one, then that one. And then either that one or that one. And yes, this particular fitting is now working. So now, off and on. So yeah.